The grand hall of echoing stars in the celestial spire of Virelia shimmered like a dream carved from moonlight and starlight. Towering crystalline pillars pulsed with soft bioluminescence, casting prismatic reflections across the polished obsidian floor. Nobles in iridescent silks and armored envoys from a dozen star systems mingled beneath vaulted ceilings that mimicked the night sky of 1,000 worlds. At the center of it all stood Corin Vale, human, hopelessly out of place, and sweating through his borrowed diplomatic tunic. He'd only been assigned to this galactic summit because every other junior xenolinguist on Earth had suddenly developed allergies to zero-gravity travel. Now, surrounded by beings with too many eyes, too few limbs, or skin that changed color with their moods, Corin clutched a flute of fizzy blue nectar like it was a lifeline. And then there was her. Princess Lyria of the Solari Dominion stood near the dais, a vision that made even the most flamboyant alien dignitaries seem dull by comparison. Her skin was the pale white of freshly fallen snow under twin suns, smooth and luminous, and her hair, oh her hair, was a cascade of spun gold that shimmered with faint amber highlights, falling in soft waves past her waist. Her eyes, large and almond-shaped, glowed a gentle citron, framed by lashes so long they seemed to catch the ambient light like tiny filaments. She wore a gown of woven solar threads that shifted from pale yellow to molten gold as she moved, and atop her head rested a delicate circlet embedded with living starlight crystals that pulsed in time with her breath. Corin had seen holos of her before, of course, everyone in the galaxy had, but nothing prepared him for the reality of her presence. She wasn't just beautiful. She radiated a quiet, regal warmth that made the cold opulence of the palace feel suddenly intimate. He'd been watching her for the better part of an hour, mesmerized as she navigated the court with effortless grace, laughing at a joke from a four-armed ambassador, gently correcting a protocol error by a nervous aide, even pausing to stroke the feathered head of a diminutive avian diplomat. There was kindness in her, a depth that transcended her royal title, and in that moment, caught between awe and absurd longing, Corin let slip the thought that had been circling his mind like a rogue comet. I wish she was my wife. The words weren't spoken aloud. They were a silent sigh of the heart, a foolish, fleeting fantasy whispered only to the stars above. Or so he thought. Princess Lyria turned. Not slowly, not with the languid poise of royalty. She spun on her heel as if yanked by an invisible thread, her golden hair fanning out like a sunburst, her citron eyes locking onto Corin with unnerving precision. The ambient hum of the hall seemed to dim. The bioluminescent pillars flickered. Even the floating server drones paused mid-air. I heard that, human, she said. Her voice was clear and melodic, like wind chimes dancing in a solar breeze, but it carried the weight of command. Corin froze, not metaphorically. His entire body locked up as if plunged into cryostasis. The flute of nectar slipped from his fingers, shattering on the obsidian floor with a sound like breaking ice. Blue droplets splattered his boots, but he didn't notice. His heart hammered against his ribs like a trapped bird, and his mouth went drier than Martian dust. She heard me? How? Humans didn't have telepathy. And as far as he knew, neither did the Solari, though admittedly, his briefing packet had been suspiciously vague on the subject of royal psychic abilities. Lyria began walking toward him, not with anger, not with amusement, at least not yet, but with a curious intensity that made Corin's knees threaten to buckle. The crowd parted before her like water before a ship's prow, every eye now fixed on the hapless human, who just committed what was probably galactic treason by thinking too loudly. He wanted to run. He wanted to vanish into the floor. Instead, he stood rooted, his brain scrambling for an explanation that wouldn't get him exiled to a neutron star. You're the linguist from Terra, aren't you? She asked, stopping just an arm's length away. Up close, she was even more breathtaking. Her skin had a faint pearlescent sheen, and he could see the delicate tracery of silver veins beneath the surface, pulsing with a soft inner light. Her scent was like ozone and blooming night flowers, clean, electric, intoxicating. Why yes, your highness, Corin stammered, bowing so deeply he nearly toppled forward. Corin Vale, junior xenolinguist, 3rd class. I mean 2nd class? I'm not sure. The promotion paperwork is pending. A flicker of something, amusement, danced in her eyes. 3rd class will do. And you were thinking, rather loudly. I didn't mean to, he began, then stopped. Denial was pointless. It was just a stupid thought, a human thing. We do that. Think things we shouldn't. Say things in our heads that would get us vaporized if spoken aloud. It's part of our charm. Lyria tilted her head, studying him as one might examine a curious insect that had wandered onto a royal banquet table. You wished I was your wife. Corin's face burned hotter than a fusion core. In my defense, your highness, you're objectively stunning and kind, and your hair looks like it was spun from actual sunlight. Also, I haven't slept in 36 hours, and my brain is basically running on recycled oxygen and regret. To his astonishment, Lyria laughed. It was a bright, musical sound that sent ripples through the tense silence of the hall. Several courtiers gasped. One elderly Solari noble dropped his ceremonial fan. Recycled oxygen and regret, she repeated, smiling. That's oddly poetic. For a human. Before Corin could formulate a response that didn't involve further humiliation, a sharp chime echoed through the hall. The great doors at the far end swung open, and a contingent of armored guards marched in. Taller than the Solari, their armor black and angular, their faces obscured by mirrored visors. They moved with mechanical precision, their boots striking the floor in perfect unison. The air grew colder. Lyria's expression hardened instantly. The warmth in her eyes vanished, replaced by steely resolve. The Obsidian Guard, she murmured, more to herself than to Corin. They're early. One of the guards stepped forward, removing his helmet to reveal a face as pale as Lyria's but devoid of warmth. Sharp features, cold gray eyes, lips pressed into a thin line. Princess Lyria, he said, his voice devoid of inflection. By order of the High Council, you are to accompany us for your own protection. Protection? Lyria scoffed. From what? My own people? Or from the truth you're trying to bury? The guard's hand twitched toward the energy pistol at his hip. Do not make this difficult, Your Highness. Corin, still standing awkwardly beside her, felt a surge of protective instinct he didn't know he possessed. Hey, he said, stepping slightly in front of Lyria before he could stop himself. She said no. Every eye in the room widened. Even Lyria looked surprised. The guard's gray eyes narrowed. Step aside, human. This does not concern you. It does if you're threatening a princess in her own palace. Corin shot back, his voice steadier than he felt. Inside, he was screaming. Why did I say that? I have no weapons. I don't even know how to throw a proper punch. But Lyria placed a hand on his arm. Her touch was cool, calming. He's right, she said, her voice ringing with authority. This is my home, and I will not be taken like a prisoner. The guard sighed, as if bored by the whole affair. Then you leave us no choice. He raised his hand. The other guards activated their wrist-mounted emitters, and a low hum filled the air as containment fields began to form around Lyria and Corin. But before the shimmering barriers could close, Lyria moved. With a grace that defied physics, she spun, her golden hair whipping through the air, and slammed her palm against the floor. A pulse of golden light erupted from her hand, racing through the obsidian tiles like liquid fire. The containment fields flickered and died. Run, she commanded, grabbing Corin's wrist. And run they did. They burst through a side archway, into a corridor lined with glowing murals depicting Solari history. Great starships, cosmic battles, the birth of their twin sons. Behind them, the Obsidian Guard gave chase, their heavy footsteps echoing like thunder. Corin's lungs burned, his legs ached, but he kept pace with Lyria, who moved with the speed of a comet. She darted down winding passages, up spiraling staircases that seemed to defy gravity, through gardens suspended in midair by anti-grav fields. How did you do that? Corin gasped as they ducked behind a fountain shaped like a coiled serpent. The light thing. Solari royalty are conduits of solar energy, she explained, peering around the fountain. We can channel it through our bodies. It's a part of our biology. Not magic, just very advanced biology. Right? Of course. Solar batteries with really good hair, Corin muttered. Lyria shot him a look, half exasperated, half amused. You're ridiculous. And you're running for your life with a third-class linguist who just admitted he wished you were his wife. So I'd say we're even. She almost smiled. Almost. But then the sound of approaching boots snapped her back to reality. They'll seal the palace soon. We need to get to the sky barge. It's docked on the eastern spire. The sky barge? Is that like a spaceship? It's a royal escape vessel. Small, fast, and armed. Armed? Great. Because nothing says romantic getaway like dodging plasma fire. Lyria rolled her eyes but didn't argue. They sprinted again, bursting onto an open balcony that overlooked the capital city of Virilia, a breathtaking metropolis of floating towers and light bridges stretching into the clouds. The eastern spire loomed ahead, a slender needle of white stone piercing the sky. And there, tethered to its peak, was the sky barge. Sleek, silver, shaped like a crescent moon, with glowing blue thrusters humming softly. But between them and the spire stood a dozen obsidian guards, weapons raised. "Plan?" Corin asked, pressing himself against the balcony railing. Lyria's eyes glowed brighter. "You trust me? Do I have a choice?" "Good answer." She grabbed his hand again and leapt. Not toward the guards. Not along the balcony. Straight off the edge. Corin screamed. A high-pitched, undignified sound. As they plummeted toward the city below, wind roared in his ears. His stomach lurched into his throat. But then Lyria's free hand shot out, and a beam of golden light lanced from her palm, striking a passing sky transport. The vehicle's anti-grav engines flared in response, and a cushion of energy caught them mid-fall, slowing their descent just enough for Lyria to redirect their momentum toward the eastern spire. They landed hard on the spire's platform, rolling to absorb the impact. Corin groaned, his ribs protesting. "Remind me never to go skydiving with a solar-powered princess." "Get up," Lyria said, already sprinting toward the sky barge. "They're locking onto us." Indeed, the obsidian guards were already launching grappling hooks from their gauntlets, lines of energy snaking through the air toward the spire. Lyria reached the barge first, slapping her palm against the hull. The door hissed open. Inside. Now. Corin scrambled in after her. The interior was compact but elegant. Polished metal walls, holographic controls, seats that molded to the body. Lyria slid into the pilot's seat, her fingers flying over the console. The engines roared to life, blue flames licking the air. "Hold on," she warned. The sky barge shot upward, tearing free of its moorings just as the first energy lines struck the platform. They broke through the cloud layer, the stars stretching out before them like an endless sea. For a moment, there was silence. Just the hum of the engines and the two of them catching their breath. Then Corin spoke. "So, why are they after you?" Lyria's expression darkened. She activated the navigation screen, plotting a course through the asteroid belt surrounding Virilia. "Because I know the truth. About the war. About who really started it." "The war between the Solari and the Cthar?" She nodded. "The High Council claims the Cthar attacked us without provocation. That they're mindless aggressors. But I intercepted a transmission, a coded message from our own fleet. We provoked them. We destroyed one of their sacred moons, disguised it as an accident. And now they're retaliating." Corin whistled. "That's bad. It's treasonous to say it aloud. Which is why they want me silenced. Or worse. Married off to some compliant noble who'll keep me quiet." Corin looked at her, really looked, saw the weight in her eyes, the loneliness beneath the regal facade. And without thinking, he said, "Well, lucky for you, I'm not a noble. And I'm terrible at keeping secrets." Lyria turned to him, surprised. Then, slowly, a real smile spread across her face, the kind that reached her eyes. "You're still ridiculous. And you're still stunning," he replied without missing a beat. "Even covered in space dust and running from assassins." She laughed again, and this time, the sound filled the small cabin like sunlight. But their moment of levity was shattered by a proximity alert blaring on the console. 3 Cthar warships had just dropped out of warp, blocking their path. "Oh, come on," Corin groaned. "Can't we catch a break?" Lyria's hands tightened on the controls. They must have tracked the sky barge's signature. Or, someone tipped them off. "Great, so we're caught between your people and theirs." "Not necessarily," she said, her eyes gleaming with determination. "There's a neutral zone, a derelict station in the Veil Nebula. If we can reach it, we can broadcast the truth. Expose the Council's lies. And if we don't make it?" Lyria glanced at him, her expression softening. "Then at least I won't be alone." Corin's heart did a strange little flip. He opened his mouth to respond, maybe with another joke, maybe with something real, but the lead Cthar ship fired. A plasma bolt screamed past the barge, shaking the hull. "Hang on!" Lyria shouted, wrenching the controls hard to starboard. The sky barge banked violently, diving into the swirling gases of the Veil Nebula. Corin was thrown against his restraints, his stomach doing somersaults. Outside, the nebula's violet and emerald clouds swallowed them whole, distorting sensors and muffling sound. The Cthar ships followed, their weapons charging. Lyria's fingers danced over the console, activating countermeasures, decoy drones, ion flares, a cloaking field that flickered uncertainly. The nebula's interference is messing with the cloak, she muttered. We won't stay hidden for long. Corrin scanned the controls, his linguist brain kicking into overdrive. What if we reroute auxiliary power to the phase inverter? Boost the cloak's frequency to match the nebula's EM field. Lyria stared at him. You understand Solari engineering? I understand patterns. And desperation. She grinned. Do it. Corrin worked quickly, rerouting power conduits, bypassing safety protocols. The cloak stabilized, the barge fading into the nebula's haze. The Cthar ship slowed, scanning blindly. For a few precious minutes, they were safe. Lyria let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. You're full of surprises, Corrin Vale. And you're full of solar-powered awesomeness, he replied, rubbing his sore neck. But seriously, why tell me all this? I'm just a human. I could turn you in. Sell your secrets to the highest bidder. She looked at him, her citron eyes steady. Because when you said you wished I was your wife, I didn't hear arrogance. I heard longing, and loneliness, and maybe hope. Corrin felt his throat tighten. He looked away, out into the swirling nebula. Yeah, well, hope's about all we've got right now. The station appeared on the sensors, a crumbling relic from the first expansion era, its hull pitted and scarred, but its core still functional. Lyria guided the barge into a hidden docking bay, the doors groaning as they sealed behind them. Inside, the station was dark, cold, and eerily silent. Emergency lights flickered, casting long shadows. Corrin followed Lyria through the corridors, his boots echoing on the metal grating. Every sound made him jump. This place gives me the creeps, he whispered. It's perfect, Lyria replied. No one comes here. The council thinks it's unstable. The Cthar think it's haunted. And is it? She smirked. Only by ghosts of bad decisions. They reached the central comms hub, a circular chamber filled with ancient consoles and holographic projectors. Lyria connected a data crystal to the main terminal. This will broadcast the transmission to every major network in the quadrant. Once it's sent, there's no taking it back. Corrin watched her, admiration warring with fear. You're really going to do it? I have to, she said softly. For my people. For theirs. He stepped closer. Then I'm with you. She looked up at him, her expression unreadable. Why? You could go back to Earth. Pretend none of this happened. Because someone's got to make sure you don't blow up the galaxy while trying to save it, he said with a crooked smile. And also, because I meant what I said. Even if it was stupid. Lyria's breath hitched. For a moment, the weight of the universe seemed to fall away, leaving only the two of them in the dim light. She reached up, her fingers brushing his cheek. Cool, gentle, real. Then the alarms blared. Intruders, Lyria hissed, pulling away. They found us. On the security feed, Obsidian guards and Cthar warriors poured into the station from opposite ends, converging on their location. They're working together? Corrin asked, stunned. Temporary alliance, Lyria said grimly. Both want me silenced. She slammed her hand on the console. Initiating broadcast in 60 seconds. We hold them off until then. Corrin looked around wildly. With what? I don't even have a pocket knife. Lyria tossed him a small device. Stun pulse emitter. Point and press. He fumbled it, nearly dropping it. Great. I'll try not to stun myself. The doors burst open. Guards from both factions charged in, weapons blazing. Lyria met them with a whirlwind of golden light, her movements a blur of precision and power. Corrin fired the emitter blindly, yelping every time a plasma bolt sizzled past his head. He ducked behind a console, heart pounding. The countdown ticked down. 30 seconds. 20. A Cthar warrior lunged at Lyria from behind. Corrin didn't think. He threw himself in the way, taking the brunt of the blow on his shoulder. Pain exploded through him, but he held on, grappling with the alien. Corrin, Lyria cried. Keep going, he shouted through gritted teeth. 10 seconds. She hesitated just for a heartbeat, then returned to the console. 5. The broadcast launched. A wave of energy pulsed from the station, racing outward at light speed, carrying the truth across the stars. The fighting stopped. Every warrior, Solari and Cthar alike, froze, their comms units lighting up with the transmission. Confusion, then dawning horror, crossed their faces. Lyria helped Corin to his feet, her eyes wide with disbelief. It worked. Told you I was good with patterns. He groaned, clutching his shoulder. But their victory was short-lived. A new ship appeared on the station's external sensors. Massive, black, bristling with weapons. The insignia on its hull was unfamiliar, ominous. "Who's that?" Corin asked. Lyria's face went pale. "The Void Syndicate. Mercenaries. They don't care about truth or peace. They only care about chaos and profit." The ship powered up its main cannon. "We need to go. Now." They ran back to the sky barge, the station shuddering under the first barrage of fire. Lyria fired up the engines, weaving through debris as the station collapsed behind them. As they shot into open space, Corin looked at the stars, no longer just distant lights, but witnesses to a truth that could change everything. And beside him sat a princess with golden hair and eyes like sunlight, who had risked everything for peace. He didn't know what came next. War? Peace? Exile? But for the first time in his life, Corin Vale didn't feel small in the vastness of the universe. Because he wasn't alone. And somewhere, deep in his foolish human heart, the wish remained, not as a fantasy, but as a quiet, stubborn hope. "I wish she was my wife." This time he didn't say it out loud. But he didn't have to. The sky barge shuddered as it punched through the outer rim of the Vale Nebula, its shields flickering under the relentless barrage from the Void Syndicate dreadnought. Corin gripped the armrests of his seat, teeth clenched against the pain radiating from his shoulder. Lyria's hands flew across the controls, her brow furrowed in concentration, golden hair whipping around her face as she executed a series of evasive maneuvers that would have made a seasoned pilot weep with envy. "They're locking onto our ion trail," she said through gritted teeth. "We can't outrun them forever." Corin winced as another plasma bolt slammed into the aft shields. "Then we don't run. We hide." "Where?" "There's nothing out here but dust and dead stars." "The asteroid belt near the Cthar border," Corin suggested, his mind racing. "It's dense, magnetically chaotic, perfect for masking our signature. Plus, if the Syndicate follows us in, they risk hitting Cthar patrols. They're mercenaries, not martyrs." Lyria glanced at him, surprise flickering in her citron eyes. "You're thinking like a strategist." "I've been reading your tactical archives during downtime," he admitted sheepishly. "You have surprisingly good bedtime stories." A ghost of a smile touched her lips before she nodded sharply. "Hold on." The barge dove into the swirling debris field, weaving through jagged rocks and frozen methane chunks with nerve-wracking precision. Behind them, the dreadnought hesitated, then followed, its massive frame scraping against the larger asteroids with ominous groans. But as Lyria predicted, the Syndicate captain grew cautious. One wrong move and they'd trigger a Cthar defense grid. "They're falling back," Corin breathed, watching the sensor display. "We did it. For now," Lyria corrected. But there was a new lightness in her voice. She guided the barge into a hollowed-out asteroid, its interior shielded by layers of ferrous rock that dampened all emissions. In the sudden quiet, the only sound was their breathing, and the soft hum of the ship's life support. Corin finally let himself slump back. "So what now? The truth's out there. The galaxy knows the Council lied. But that doesn't mean they'll listen." Lyria unbuckled her harness and turned to him fully. "It means the people will demand answers. And if the Council refuses, revolution." She paused, then added quietly, "But I can't lead it alone." He met her gaze. "I'm just a linguist, Lyria. I translate dead alien poetry for a living." "You're more than that," she said firmly. "You stood in front of armed guards for me. You rerouted a phase inverter with your bare hands. You took a plasma strike meant for me." Her voice softened. "And you wished I was your wife, even when you thought I'd never hear it." Corin's throat tightened. He looked away, suddenly fascinated by a loose wire near the floor. "Yeah, well, I've got terrible timing." "Maybe," she said, stepping closer. "Or maybe it was perfect." Before he could respond, the ship's proximity alarm chimed. Not a threat, but a hail. A secure, encrypted channel. Lyria frowned. "That's my private frequency. Only one person has access." She accepted the call. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing a Solari woman older than Lyria, with the same white skin and golden hair, though hers was braided with mourning beads. Her eyes were red-rimmed, weary. "Aunt Vela?" Lyria whispered, stunned. Lyria, the woman said, her voice trembling. Thank the twin sons you're alive. The council, they've declared you a traitor. They've arrested half the royal house. They say you've allied with the Cthar and consorted with humans to destabilize the Dominion. Lyria's fists clenched. Because I told the truth? Because you exposed their lie? Vela corrected. And now they're purging anyone who might support you. But there's hope. The broadcast reached the outer colonies. Uprisings have begun. The people are calling for your return. Corin watched Lyria's face shift. Grief, fury, resolve. I can't go back yet. The syndicate's hunting us. And if I show my face, they'll use me as bait. Then don't show your face, Vela said, her eyes flicking to Corin. Use your human. No one expects a human to be your strategist or your consort. Lyria stiffened. He's not my. He will be, Vela interrupted gently. If you want to survive, the Solari people won't follow a princess who's alone. But a princess with a bondmate, especially one who defied death for her, that's a story they'll rally behind. Corin's eyes widened. Wait, bondmate? As in married. In Solari tradition, a public bond, especially one forged in crisis, is as binding as marriage, Lyria explained, her cheeks faintly glowing. It's political, symbolic, right? Symbolic? Corin said, trying to ignore the sudden flutter in his chest. So, fake engagement? Got it. But Vela was already shaking her head. Not fake. The bond must be real. Otherwise, the elders will see through it. You must undergo the ceremony of twin flames. Lyria went very still. That ceremony requires emotional truth. It reads the heart. Then let it read yours, Vela said softly. Ask yourself, when he took that blow for you, did you feel nothing? Silence stretched between them, thick and electric. Finally, Lyria whispered, End the call, Aunt. The hologram vanished. She turned to Corin, her expression unreadable. You don't have to do this. I won't ask you to tie your life to mine just for politics. Corin exhaled slowly. You know, back on Earth, we have the saying, fake it till you make it. But I don't think that works when your fake fiancé can literally feel your heartbeat during a ritual. He stood, wincing slightly, and stepped toward her. But here's the thing, Lyria. I didn't wish you were my wife because you're a princess. I wished it because when you laughed at my dumb joke in that palace, I felt seen. Like maybe, in this huge, terrifying universe, there was someone who'd think my recycled oxygen and regret was kind of charming. He reached out, hesitated, then gently brushed a strand of golden hair from her face. So if the ceremony needs truth, I've got plenty. Tears welled in Lyria's eyes, real, human-like tears that shimmered like liquid amber. You're still ridiculous. And you're still the most terrifyingly beautiful person I've ever met, he said. Even when you're about to drag me into an ancient ritual that might accidentally bind our souls forever. She laughed through her tears. It won't bind our souls, just our fates. Same difference, he muttered. But he didn't pull away. They spent the next hours preparing. Vela had transmitted the ritual coordinates. A hidden temple on the moon of Silva, long abandoned but still sanctified. The sky barge limped through the asteroid field, its systems patched with Corin's jury-rigged repairs and Lyria's solar-charged conduits. When they landed on Silva, the temple rose before them like a ghost, carved from white stone, overgrown with silver vines that pulsed faintly in the moonlight. Inside, the air hummed with latent energy. At the center of the chamber stood the flame altar, two intertwined pillars of crystal, cold and dark. The ceremony requires both participants to speak their truth, Lyria explained, her voice hushed. Then place their hands on the flames. If the bond is genuine, the flames ignite. If not, they remain cold. And if they remain cold? Corin asked. We leave, and hope the syndicate doesn't find us before we figure out Plan C. He nodded. Right? No pressure. They stood before the altar. Lyria took a deep breath. I, Lyria of the Solari Dominion, daughter of starlight and shadow, speak my truth. I once believed humans were fragile, fleeting things, like sparks in the wind. But Corin Vale, you are not a spark. You are a fire, and I would walk through war, exile, even death, to stand beside you. Corin's breath caught. He swallowed hard. I, Corin Vale of Earth, third-class linguist and accidental hero, speak my truth. I came here thinking I was just translating words. But you taught me that some truths aren't spoken, they're lived. And if living mine means standing with you, then I choose you. Not as a princess, not as a symbol, but as Lyria. They placed their hands on the crystals. For a heartbeat, nothing. Then, with a roar like 1,000 suns awakening, golden flames erupted from the altar, spiraling upward and weaving around their arms like living light. The temple trembled. The vines outside bloomed with radiant flowers. It worked, but their relief was short-lived. A shadow fell across the entrance. Clad in black armor, flanked by a dozen syndicate mercenaries, stood a figure Corrin recognized with a jolt of dread. Commander Drex, former Solari High Guard, disgraced, now the syndicate's top bounty hunter, and Lyria's ex-fiancé. Well, Drex sneered, his pale face twisted with bitterness. The traitor princess and her pet human. How poetic. Lyria stepped in front of Corrin, her hands glowing. You were banished, Drex. You have no authority here. I have a contract, he said, drawing a plasma blade. Dead or alive. Though I'd prefer dead. Corrin's mind raced. You don't have to do this. The truth's out. The war's over. The war's just beginning, Drex spat. And you too lit the fuse. He lunged. What followed was chaos. Blades of light clashing against plasma. Corrin dodging fire while trying to reactivate the temple's ancient defenses. Lyria fighting with the fury of a cornered star. But Drex was faster, stronger, fueled by betrayal and rage. He disarmed Lyria with a brutal strike, sending her crashing into the altar. The flames sputtered. Lyria, Corrin cried. Drex turned to him, blade raised. Say goodbye, human. But Corrin didn't flinch. Instead, he slammed his palm onto a hidden glyph on the temple floor, the one he'd noticed while studying the murals. You forgot one thing, Drex. What's that? This temple doesn't just honor bonds, Corrin said grimly. It punishes oathbreakers. The ground erupted with golden light. Chains of pure solar energy burst from the walls, wrapping around Drex and his men, burning away their armor, their weapons, their defiance. Drex screamed as the chains dragged him into the temple's depths, a prison for those who broke sacred vows. Silence returned. Corrin rushed to Lyria, helping her up. You okay? She nodded, breathless. You knew about the glyph? I read the inscriptions. He who breaks faith shall be consumed by the light he once swore to serve. He grinned weakly. Turns out my bedtime stories paid off. She looked at him, really looked, and then kissed him. Not a symbolic gesture, not a political move. A kiss full of fire, relief, and something deeper. Something that felt like the beginning of everything. When they pulled apart, the flames on the altar burned brighter than ever. But outside, the stars told a different story. New signals flashed on the skybarge's comms. Distress calls from Solari colonies under attack, Cthar fleets mobilizing, whispers of a shadow fleet gathering in the galactic core. The truth had been sown, but the harvest would be bloody. Lyria took Corrin's hand. This is only the beginning. He squeezed back. Then let's make it a good story. And as the sky barge lifted off, carrying a human linguist and a solar princess into the storm of revolution, the universe held its breath, waiting to see if love, truth, and a little bit of ridiculous hope could change the fate of worlds. Weeks later, beneath the twin suns of a liberated Virilia, its skies no longer choked with warships but shimmering with the banners of peace, Corrin Vale stood on the palace balcony in a tunic woven from solar thread, his shoulder healed, his heart steady. Before him, bathed in golden light, Lyria waited, her white skin glowing, her yellow hair crowned not with starlight crystals, but with simple white blossoms from Earth, sent by a planet that had never stopped believing in its unlikely sun. No grand council watched, no galactic dignitaries judged, just the people, Solari, Cthar, humans, and a dozen other species who had fought, bled, and hoped together. The ceremony of twin flames needed no repetition. The bond forged in fire had already spoken. But this quiet vow beneath open skies, was theirs alone. I choose you, Corrin said, voice rough with emotion. And I choose you, Lyria replied, taking his hands. They kissed as the suns dipped below the horizon. Not as princess and linguist, not as symbols of peace, but simply as two souls who'd found each other in the chaos, and refused to let go. And somewhere, in a quiet corner of the galaxy, a third-class linguist finally got his wish.